Now let's get on to our special discussion. Tonight we are asking, is winning the toss becoming too important? Let's bring up this graphic to show you what has been happening in the last 14 years. Well, in the last, in the first 8 years, it's been pretty much a mixed bag. 4 times in 4 seasons, teams batting first have been ahead, and 4 times teams batting second have been ahead. But it's from 2016. This is what is interesting, that 59.21% times teams chasing have won. So clearly there is a trend there. To discuss more, I'm joined by former India cricketer Sabah Karim at this hour, also ESPN Cricinfo stats editor S. Rajesh, and sports broadcaster Seth Bennett. Sabah, let me come to you and ask you, there's a definite trend being seen that the teams that are chasing well, and more teams winning the toss are deciding to chase.
It is quite startling, so to speak, Rika. And I think if you dig further and get some more stats, national T20 trends, you will notice a similar kind of a story being repeated. So it's not only IPL, but most of the international T20 game, you'll see a similar kind of a trend. I think this emergence of strong, physically built power hitters has now propelled teams to rework on their strategy. And they feel that if you have 1 or 2 power hitters in your rank who can bat number 5, number 6, then it is always better to chase. And that is why we see such successful run chases. So shorter the format, more chances of the team that bats second to pull off a win. And that is why we see this kind of results in the ongoing IPL also.
Rajesh, let's hear from you. Thank you for helping us put together a lot of those stats we are going to see along the way. But why have you seen this as a template that is emerging in IPL?
Yes, more and more we've seen the captain say that, and I agree with what Sabah Karim has said about big hitters and number 5 and 6, and there's almost no limit to how far you can hit the ball and how often you can hit the ball these days. But of course, the other important thing is the due factor and the season and the time when the matches are played. Increasingly, we had KL Rahul mention that again yesterday about the wet ball and all the difference that makes. So especially if you're looking at the last few seasons of IPL 2019 and even the first half of 2021, which was held in India as also the UAE. It was almost, about more than 60%, about 60% matches, 35-22 in 2019, I think 37-22 in 2021. So there's also that due factor, and it's a distinct disadvantage when the team that is bowling first has those 5-7 overs when the ball is dry, and then the team batting second is bowling with the wet ball almost right through the innings.
Right, there on your screens, you can see that bar diagram which shows 2019 and in 2021 how the teams increasingly deciding to bowl first have won more number of matches, 86% in 2019 and 73% in 2021. In fact, in 2021, half of the season was also held in the UAE. Now, betting is not legal in India, but there are bets being placed on betting websites across the globe. Seth, let me get you into the discussion at this point. The importance of toss is reflected in the betting odds when one looks up at the websites just after the toss. Each match, whenever one sees that, the one team that is, less favorable has won the toss and has decided to field, their odds change. Have you also seen that happen in IPL?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those interesting factors, isn't it? How much is this down to the fact that the toss is impacted, or how much is it now that the captains completely understand the sport and the batters are able to just go and deliver? And it doesn't matter, if you need 40 off the last 3 overs, that's very, very achievable in the game now. Whereas if you think back even 10 years, you'd be thinking, wow, more than a run of ball, it's going to start to get very difficult very, very quickly. And I just think it is that change in mindset that we've seen across the whole of cricket now, where players are able to deliver their skills under pressure. And I wonder whether now the onus has really got to go back to the bowlers and see what they can do.
Sabah, would you say a game of skill, T20 cricket is increasingly becoming a game of luck here? You win the toss.
No, Rika, I would say it is a combination of skill and power. But, in such a long tournament like the IPL, as the tournament progresses and there is more wear and tear on such tracks, I do expect IPL teams to rework their strategy. And maybe there may be some, on some occasions, teams may prefer to bat first because of the wear and tear, and it may offer some turn. So they would like to bat first on a wicket like that. And we saw that last time when IPL was held in different centers all across India. So you saw the wicket at Chennai, it had slow turns, so teams were preferring to bat first because they never knew what may happen in the second half of the game. But at this stage, because of the kind of surface the IPL is being played right now, only 4 centers, at least in the initial phase, at least a month of this tournament, you'll have this kind of a trend. Right. But it also means, Rika, that if you bat first, you need to keep at least 15 to 20 runs buffer with you if you want to defend any score which you have put on board. Because it seems that for the team that is batting second, no run chase is impossible.
Which is why we have also seen 200 runs being chased down in the first few days of this IPL. Now, let me bring you 2 interesting graphics. One on how the teams have performed in the knockout matches of IPL and their decisions in the IPL finals. Now, when you look at the knockout matches in the IPL, we see that till 2015, 41% of the teams that have bowled first have won. But 2016 onwards, it's been an overwhelming number of 58.33. But in the finals, have a look at this. 2016 onwards, teams deciding to bowl first, their numbers have slipped to, their winning percentage have slipped to 33.33. Rajesh, would you like to comment on this? Why the trend has reversed in case of the finals?
Yeah, I guess first of all, we need to point out that 2 of those matches in the finals were decided by a 1-run margin. The 2017 finals when Pune lost to Mumbai, and then again 2019 when CSK lost. So both of them were by 1-run margins, and so it could easily have flipped the other way had they won. So I mean, those are small margins, but there are a couple of points there. As again Sabah Karim pointed out, the pitches wear and tear towards the second half of the season, and obviously the final is the last match of the season, so they could be played on pitches which are not fresh. So you may not have that advantage of batting second that you may otherwise have. So that could be one of the reasons. But I mean, increasingly we used to see that putting runs on the board would be the mantra, and earlier that used to be the pressure of chase and all of that. But I don't think that holds despite the finals result. Okay, I guess there is still the point that, in the final, getting runs on the board, that might make a difference. But increasingly, at least in most of the rest of the tournament, I mean, runs on the board really doesn't mean anything, because I guess there is still a tendency to be slightly conservative when you're batting first, to still keep wickets in hand. At least some teams still want to go that way. But in a chase, I mean, there is no question of being conservative, and it's sort of attack from the first ball, and that really makes the difference in terms of run chases.
Really interesting when you say that the runs on the board doesn't mean much, because in cricket we always know that runs on the board, when a team has runs on the board, they are confident enough to win the match. More often than not, that happens in Test cricket, but not in IPL. Now, let's bring you another graphic on how the trend has been internationally, and that talks about the trend in different leagues. In BBL, we've seen 49% of the teams chasing have been winning since 2016. That's the Big Bash League in Australia. In Caribbean Premier League, it is about 54.87%. Pakistan Super League, 60.29%. And in T20 Blast, which takes place in England, the teams fielding first, again, they are winning 48.55% times. Seth, do you have a comment on this? You know, clearly we see that in subcontinent, the trend is to bowl first, having won the toss first. But in BBL, and if we look at T20 Blast in England, and also maybe perhaps in Caribbean Premier League, it could be a little more even.
Well, look at me, Rika. Right now, we're nearly in April and I'm in my thick winter jacket. I'm outside in a football stadium. And what that tells you is that the weather conditions have such a massive part to play in England. And the other thing is when you bat second in England is the amount of dew that falls. And so it makes it very, very tricky. Number one, to bowl, but also it makes it really, really hard to get that ball to the boundary because it does just slow down a little bit more on the outfield. So here, what you might also find is if you get a sporty pitch with a green tinge to it, you bowl first, you put pressure on by taking early wickets, and that's how you win games. Not every single pitch, but I think there's a lot more variation in surface in the UK than there probably is anywhere else in the world.
Interesting thoughts there. Sabah, one last word from you. What could be the remedy? How could this once again be a game of skill and skill dominate over luck?
So there are two different aspects to it, Rika. I mean, T20, we have seen that it is becoming more of a power hitting game, which is understandable. The shorter the format, you have T10 coming in, you have the hundreds coming in. You need such batters who can bat 4, 5, 6, who can be powerful hitters. So that is a different story altogether. But how to bring back the balance between bat and ball, that is the question to be asked now. More so in subcontinent conditions in this time of the year when there is so much of dew that comes in. So I think weather plays a big role. So I feel, I mean, although BCCI is trying its level best, I mean, they do have these sprays, which is done on the ground before the session begins. They've also tried, look at the 50-over format now. It starts, I think, 1:30. So they've tried all that, but invariably, it is not easy to find a solution because of the spectators also. They want to watch these games in the under lights. So I think not much can be done at this stage, Rika. I don't know. Can you give a buffer to the team that is batting first? I don't know how to go about it. I'm sure there are many more thinkers who would be doing a lot of brainstorming to come up with some kind of a solution.
Right. Perhaps BCCI will have a look at the playing conditions and figure what is the best way going forward. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me on the broadcast.